Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Hello and welcome to the Success in Africa Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce, and I am a scholar and practitioner of leadership and organizational development. Simply put, I study what makes people successful. I've been doing this for 3 decades now, with a particular focus on people having success right here in Africa. And in this podcast, I share stories, lessons, and insights about people having success in Africa. Why this podcast? Because I have a vision for Africa. I have a vision of Africa becoming a high-income continent by the year 2040. And for that to happen, I need you and every other African listening or watching this podcast to become successful. So, if you want to be successful in Africa, I encourage you to like and subscribe to this podcast. This episode is brought to you courtesy of BCA Online, your one-stop shop for mastering leadership. Joining BCA Online is free, and it will give you access to countless hours of knowledge, videos, and a plethora of information about leadership that will enhance your capacity. So if you have questions, by the way, that you want me to answer after watching this video, just log on to BCA Online, the link is on the screen, and post your questions there. That is where I will respond to your questions. Today we're going to learn from the successful journey of a man, an African, who almost became a seminarian. He went on to co-author the regulatory code that today governs insurance markets across 14 African countries, and then built the first homegrown banking insurance conglomerate in the history of Côte d'Ivoire. This gentleman, who, as I said, trained to become a seminarian, but then found his way into the boardroom, is none other than Monsieur Jean Kakou Diagou, the founder of NSIA Group. Jean Kakou Diagou was born in Abidjan in the late 1940s. As I mentioned before, when he was a young man, he attended seminary school before he completed his secondary education with a baccalaureate in philosophy. He went on to earn a degree in economics from what is today the Félix Houphouët-Boigny University in Abidjan before moving to Paris to specialize further, earning an insurance diploma from the National Insurance Institute at the CNAM Institute. His career began modestly, head of the claims department at SER, a French insurance agency that was part of the Union des Assurances de Paris. He worked his way up through that organization, which would later become AXA, eventually rising to a senior leadership position overseeing its operations across Africa. By the early 1990s, Monsieur Diagou had spent roughly 2 decades inside the insurance industry, almost all of it within large French multinational structures. Between 1991 and 1992, Monsieur Diagou played a central role in negotiating and co-authoring the CIMA code, C-I-M-A code, the regulatory framework that to this day governs insurance markets across 14 African countries through the Inter-African Conference on Insurance Markets. That work gave him a rare comprehensive view of the entire regional insurance landscape. And it convinced him that there was room for something that did not yet exist on the continent: a fully African-owned, transnational insurance operator. In 1995, after roughly 20 years working inside the very multinational structures that he was about to compete against, he left his position to found the Nouvelle Société Interafricaine d'Assurance, known as NSIA, with approximately 300 million CFA francs in capital, almost entirely African sourced. NSIA grew quickly. Within 6 months of launch, the company had already generated 900 million CFA francs in revenue. In 1996, when Assurance Générale de France withdrew from the African insurance market, NSIA moved decisively and acquired its Ivorian subsidiary, which was a striking reversal for a company that, less than a year earlier, had been competing directly against the very multinational network that Monsieur Diagou had spent 2 decades working inside. Yes, the African company bought out the French international. Over the following decade, the group expanded steadily across the region, establishing operations in Benin, Gabon, Senegal, Congo, and Togo. The defining strategic move came in the year 2006 when NSIA led the acquisition of BIAO, one of Côte d'Ivoire's oldest banks. That single deal transformed NSIA from a pure insurance company into a true bank insurance conglomerate. A bank assurance model that was still a new concept for West Africa at the time. By the 2010s and 2020s, NSIA Group had become a genuine Pan-African financial institution with operations across 12 countries, dozens of insurance and banking subsidiaries, and thousands of employees throughout West and Central Africa. The group later expanded into fintech through NSIA Technologies. It launched a foundation focused on health, education, and entrepreneurship, and took a 25% stake in Orange Bank Africa. Mr. Diagou became a significant voice in regional business policy. He led Côte d'Ivoire's main employers federation, the CGECI, for more than a decade and served as the president of the Federation of West African Employers Organizations. And as NSIA matured, leadership began passing to the next generation, his daughters, Benedicte and Dominique. They took on senior executive roles within the group, with Benedicte eventually becoming the group's board chair. So what can we learn from the remarkable journey of Monsieur Jean Kakou Diagou? 5 things. Number 1, it's okay to spend your apprenticeship inside the very system you intend to disrupt. Monsieur Diagou spent roughly 20 years working inside large French insurance multinationals before founding NSIA. That time was not wasted. It gave him technical expertise, regulatory knowledge, and market understanding that he needed to compete against those very same companies once he struck out on his own. Notice a pattern here. For industries in which there are significant capital requirements to start, it's important to have been properly grounded in that industry, to have earned a reputation, so that when you start, you can be able to attract the kind of capital that is required for you to meet the regulatory requirements. So he spent significant time in apprenticeship. That's lesson number one. Lesson number two, use policy work to see the whole playing field. By co-authoring the CIMA code, it gave Monsieur Diagou a rare regulatory eye view of the entire regional insurance market, insights that many of his competitors simply did not have. Look for opportunities to participate in shaping the rules of your industry. You see, that vantage point often reveals openings, opportunities, gaps that are invisible from inside a single company. That's lesson number two. Lesson number three, enter at a moment where your competitors retreat. There are opportunities throughout Africa where multinationals, large global companies may be withdrawing for reasons that may have very little to do with the local market. And where they are withdrawing, especially when you know the local market, that's an opportunity to take advantage and to enter that market. You see, in the case of Monsieur Diagou, a major multinational withdrew from the African insurance market in 1996, and he moved immediately to acquire the local subsidiary. The biggest openings in any market sometimes can appear exactly when established players are pulling back. Obviously, you need to understand why they are pulling back, investigate it. But in the case of Monsieur Diagou, he understood the market very well because he had helped to author the regulations that governed the market, and therefore had done his homework. That's lesson number three. Lesson number four, be bold. Be bold. Monsieur Diagou was not afraid to make bold acquisitions. And the 2006 acquisition of BIAO, it didn't just add a bank to NSIA's portfolio. It transformed the entire company into a pioneer of bank assurance in West Africa. See, he had already done an acquisition, but that was within his industry. By going into the acquisition of a bank, he really stepped a bit outside of his comfort zone. He was bold, and that bold move changed NSIA from just an insurance company into a massive conglomerate that redefined an industry. So look for the opportunities, but also don't be afraid to be a first mover. Monsieur Diagou was a first mover, and his company has benefited from that. Fifth lesson, build governance into the institution. I don't want anybody to get it confused. The fact that Monsieur Diagou has been able to get his daughters into senior leadership roles does not mean that he ran his company just as a family-owned business. By helping to write the regulatory code that the entire regional industry operates, he also understood the importance of good governance practices. And he instituted that into NSIA. And it is that governance structure that ensured that when he was transitioning the leadership of the company to his daughters, the company did not collapse. In fact, it grew. You see, the combination of external credibility that a governance structure gives you, and also proper succession planning that Monsieur Diagou engaged in, is what allowed this enterprise to outlive its founder. 5 lessons. 1, spend your apprenticeship wisely. Don't put a time limit onto it, especially for industries that are heavily regulated. 2, use policy work to see the entire field. 3, enter at the moment your competitors retreat. 4, be bold. 5, build governance into your institution. Monsieur Diagou reshaped the industry in Africa of insurance and banking. His legacy lives on. Yes, he had originally planned to become a seminarian, but today, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Africans owe their careers and their success to this man's patience, his technical mastery, his boldness, his discipline, and his sense of timing. Folks, we've come to the end of another episode. I do hope you've learned a bit more about what it takes to lead and succeed in Africa. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and like this video. Tell your friends about it, because together we can transform our beloved continent of Africa. I'll see you next week.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.